Hey all, here OS Reviews. About a year and a half ago, we checked out a pair of TWS wireless buds called the Mifo O5s, and I like them a lot because of the premium aluminum case that just felt extremely sturdy, and also the solid sound combined with very long 100-hour battery life with the case, although it did come with a few shortcomings, notably that the O5s use these tiny little controls, which was not quite as easy to hit if you had larger fingers compared to something like a touch sensor. Well, now here in late 2021, the company is back with a upgraded version of the O5s. They're calling this their second generation, just has those incremental updates in terms of it now uses a touch control that looks slightly different, and now using the upgraded QC3040 chipset, it supports low latency and Qualcomm aptX, which is an audio codec that the previous model was missing. So these are technically going to be slightly more higher fidelity, and that also comes in the form of elongated battery life optimization. These using Bluetooth 5.2, the case can get you up to 150 hours. That's a whopping 50 hours longer than the already impressive 100 hours on the original. It's also offer IP67 for water resistance, so you can use it if it's raining and it should still survive. 2,600 milliamp hours for the case is so large that it can even be used as an emergency power bank for your smartphone. Now inside of here we do have a quick user guide of how to pair it up and the touch functions in terms of what the taps can do. So these also preserve the function of volume control, which I always like to see. Tapping on the left or right side once can raise the volume higher or lower, although perhaps one function that you lose here is the audio transparency mode. That was something the original O5s had. These don't have active noise cancellation, just like the originals, but they did have that ambient awareness mode that kind of magnified the sound. We've got the O5 Gen 2 presented on top, looks as neat as ever, and really does resemble the originals in terms of the design and the weight and feeling. One other notable upgrade here, though, is it's using finally a USB Type-C reversible modern charging port versus the original when it came out in 2019 was still using micro USB. Of course, if you are an owner of the original O5s, it might not really make sense for you to get the upgraded model since they are still relatively similar. But if you are in the market for kind of a new pair of buds, it does make these a bit more modern and compelling. As far as extra accessories, we do get a Mifo branded USB Type-C charging cable, along with a quick start guide that is documenting things in more detail, as well as spare silicone tips to get a more snug fit, and the adapter for transforming it into a power bank. Since there is no full-size USB Type-A port on it, you would convert the Type-C into a full-size port if you want to then plug in a cable for charging your phone. A few other points here, the buds are using dynamic drivers, which have also been slightly tweaked and upgraded compared to the original generation, promising more detail and richer bass, so we'll talk about that later on in this video, as well as the buds when removed will last for up to 10 hours continuously, but again with the case combined, you get that whopping 150 hours when on the road. Another difference between the two is the Mifo logo is now vertically stacked compared to horizontal in terms of text, so you can kind of delineate it from afar, but it's a little bit tough, and the color of both, which is the space gray with chamfered edges, are both very similar. Now we can also compare it briefly with a newer pair of buds from Mifo, which is the O7s. These we also checked out earlier in the year, and these are slightly more premium in terms of audio. They have dual drivers, but notably also have shorter battery life as a result, but these are still their flagship model that sells for around $150 versus this O5 second generation sells for around $100 at the moment. Of course, that's not cheap by any means, but compared to AirPods, it's still roughly half the price, and with a design that is definitely more premium. We see the slogan, "Make it fully optimal," and this hinge, which is also made out of metal, that is characteristic of their wireless buds, exactly the same as on the original generation model, as we can see there, and otherwise we have just the buds right on top. The accent of red and blue is a little bit less obvious compared to the originals, as you can see there, but the overall shape is still this kind of teardrop, showing us plenty of detail. Just like before, the buds are magnetically held into place, and whenever you kind of pop them back in, they will start to recharge. There is an LED light that you can see there. Now the buds themselves, again, are very lightweight and small, despite the relatively long-lasting 10 hours per charge. Here they are next to each other just for reference, but on the back they look very similar in terms of the charging contacts, the tilt and ergonomics of the drivers, and the tips do feel very familiar, and overall it's a soft touch material on the back, so it is pretty resistant to falling out when you pop them in. Even if I was jogging or moving around, they still stayed in place. Now the design of these are a lot more similar to the O7s in a way, so just taking those side by side here just as a quick reference. Although the stem here is ever so slightly shorter. Here they are next to the regular AirPods as well as Redmi's AirDots, so you can see that the size is not too far off. Both are relatively compact. Moving into the audio quality and performance of the O5 second generation model, I would say that compared to the original series, it definitely is a slight boost in terms of the sound. It's just a bit more refined, perhaps most obvious in the mids and trebles. The bass is definitely present on these buds. I wouldn't say they're necessarily earth-shattering, but if you are listening to bass-boosted tracks, a drum beat, or EDM music, it definitely gives you a bit of a kick, comfortable and fun to listen to for most genres of music. Of course, compared to the aforementioned O7s, which do have those dual drivers, I would say these arguably have even bit more detail and even punchier bass. So if you're more of a bass head or kind of an audiophile and you just want the best sound above all else, those are still the ones that I would steer you towards, and the O7s remains my daily driver, but these are still going to perform better than pretty much the Redmi AirDots and even the AirPods. Vocals shine, same thing goes with instrumentals, it all sounds quite good. Latency is also improved compared to the original O5s, thanks to the use of that, again, Qualcomm 3040 chipsets, which on compatible devices using a Qualcomm processor, you can also experience automatic low latency mode that it will switch into when you're gaming, although there is no dedicated way of doing that yourself by pressing a button, and it will do its thing, providing some extra juice to your phone when you are in a pinch. So that's more or less it as far as our hands-on review of the upgraded Generation 2 model of the Mifo O5s. Again, we're talking about incremental updates here in small areas like making the ergonomics of the controls better, aptX audio codec support, newer Bluetooth 5.2, and even longer battery life. There's a few areas like maybe having built-in active noise cancellation, so ANC is a feature that we've yet to see out of any pair of buds from this company, and I do think that since they are starting to compete in this premium space, and really over the past year or two, TWS buds have gotten so competitive that it's just harder and harder to stand out. So it never hurts to have those features, but as it is, super strong construction quality, long battery life, and again, very good sound. You can check out more details if you're interested in the links down below. For now, that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews.